chat for viewers to read. Click any message. Got it? Okay. All right, so I am now fully set for my live on YouTube as well as for my page on my thought massager on my page, and of course I also have I'm live on my profile. Okay, how is my audio, friends? Let me get near you to see if my audio is okay. All right, and I shall later on be setting my sounds quite far from. Oh wow, so Charm is sending me some photos. Okay, so it's been a busy day today actually. My friend, my very good friend, who is a motivational trainer and speaker, my mind disturber, called me early today, which call I hardly could say no because it was a call to my advantage even if I am not so prepared, because once in a week without definite schedule, this guy would always call me for something that I could never refuse. It's about shooting day, which he would love to shoot with me, as I would love to collab with him because it is this guy who can really disturb my mental balance to bring out some wisdom inside that has been locked for years, which could just be very impossible or hard for me to bring out alone on a monologue. And that's why, even if, okay, I'm adjusting on my light, even if I would feel like I'm quite unprepared for, wow, Amy is watching, shout out to you, Amy. All right, and Jonah Dobb. We have Laila Bernido also watching, all right. Shout out to all of you guys. We have a few of my friends who are on my profile today. I'm live on my 3 accounts. This is done simultaneously with my YouTube account, my profile page, as well as my profile on Facebook, as well as on my Facebook page. I'm excited because today, after the very busy shooting day, I still have to do a lot of editing before I'll go on uploading them, but I would like to share the news that it really was something very productive for my day, as I am with my friend who in our shooting coverage we were able to make a lot of very interesting topic to share. Wait na lang on the uploads, okay? So there were many things that this guy is so curious to know, as he is driven by his fierce intellectual curiosity to discover more and more of what there is in life, as he now gets to realize, being a mentor and a trainer, that the materials that they've been using on for most of his modules or his workshop are based on the mechanistic way of viewing the world. What I mean is that which is very Newtonian in concept. Well, the Newtonian way of approaching life or looking at the universe is, all right, Linato Laberos is viewing on my, shout out to you, Brad Renato Laberos, yeah? What I'm saying at is the Newtonian way of approaching life and the universe is to look at life itself as well as the universe itself like it is a huge mechanical engine, okay? And so that every part that needed replacement can just be easily studied, okay? Which is what has defined the medical world today, and that has also been the way we were viewing the world at. We were look at the world as like a huge mechanical engine from the concept of Newtonian physics. But when quantum science was discovered in the early 90s, talking of 1925, Max Planck being the father of quantum physics, although Einstein earlier had this concept of quantum, we are now to approach to view the world, including ourselves, in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, which somehow made sense among the modern minds in the modern scientific world because we all are energetic beings created by a loving God, fresh from the hand of a loving God, with a mind that processes energy. I'm talking of a thought, which mind through a thought actually is responsible for creating things. I have a viewer on my YouTube, whoever this guy is. Okay. And so creation, patterned from how God created the entire cosmos, began in the mind of God. And when after sin, one third of the angels, along with its arch leader, the arch enemy, who isolated themselves in abyss and who led to God's terraforming of a planet Earth, created a microcosm world of cosmos for the rest of the universe. The two-thirds of those loyal angels that were left in heaven, plus the one-third who sided with the enemy, to see an evidence of how God created a microcosm world of cosmos that operated exactly the way the entire universe operates. Okay? And that was again from a mind of God, whose mind is very energetic. It was full of energy. That's why the scientific world would call this mind as the mind of the infinite intelligence or the quantum field, full of energy. But moving ahead, when Earth was terraformed and a new species was made to become a spectacle to the entire world, what the Bible describes about the human species, that the second person of the Godhead decided to join the species if only to save a fallen world. On creation, we were pronounced to be a co-creator with God, and for being a co-creator, God gave us the mind to process thought, which is where creation also is situated in the human species. So the every creation, as a co-creator, okay, that we were vested authority on begins in our mind by the mind processing a thought. And in relation to quantum physics, where we have to view the world in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, a mind with its brainwaves processing a thought is a form of energy, which thought also is an energy that it processed. Okay? And so if you look at the entire system of the human being, which is a replica again of how the entire cosmos was made, because we are a community of around 50 trillion cells. Its cells are all sentient cells that had its sensors capable of receiving information from the commander or the governor, which is the mind. Okay? And they are being ruled and or fueled by energetic force that runs around the cardiovascular system, in our circulatory system, as well as in our digestive system, to include our immune system. And everything runs around, okay. So that's why we are energetic beings creating and or processing thought and broadcasting this thought in order to form connections between another human being, which connections that the world needed is the connection or the band of energy that we call love. All right, so love is the most important energy that the cosmos ever needs, because the world is made of love from a creator whose heart and hands and mind is love, creating human beings which are energetic, loving creatures to spread the message of love. But this was corrupted when an enemy started to accuse the character of a loving God in terms of its principle that we call law, and where it gained around one-third of sympathy from the angels of heaven that warred, that rebelled, and isolate themselves in the great abyss that led to the terraformation of solar galaxy or Milky Way where Earth is found. So we had that already in our early Bible studies on the page that we have started with a friend from Canada who would like us to extrapolate on how everything began at the beginning. Okay? And so if we would collaborate it from the word, the very basic thing that every religion teaches about when you open your Bible, in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, it stipulates about in the beginning, of course, we came from a God who in the beginning has no beginning, but at the very beginning when He created everything to include earth. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. Term heavens refers to the billions of galaxies of the entire cosmos to include earth, that when you go to the second verse of that book written ever by the first author of the Pentateuch, Moses, it describes this earth to be something unlivable. Earth doesn't have its form. Okay? When it doesn't have its form, it doesn't have vegetation, it doesn't have oxygen. It is a planet, it's a dead planet, although it was part of the creation, but it does not have the capacity to operate and to accommodate species because it was without form. So it took after a war that broke out in heaven. We already tackled this. That's why I have this recorded in my YouTube for a documentation. Although we started this with our page, that after there was that war in heaven that John the Revelator had revealed in his writings in Revelation chapter 12, okay, that led to the overthrow of Lucifer and one-third of his angels, which led to a loving God to provide light to an unlighted abyss. It was not only to provide light, but also to provide the total evidence of how He created for the angels to see, and for the principles of this creation by how it operates that the angels might have knowledge about. We are talking of the microcosm world of cosmos involving millions of stars, one moon, one sun, and 8 planets. I'm referring to the Milky Way galaxy, which happened a little later after the entire creation when sin was introduced and when the enemy isolated themselves to an abyss, which abyss Earth was a part of. And when Earth was terraformed, if only to have vegetation in order for it to accommodate life, and when finally in the 6th day of terraforming Earth, or recreating it, that was when the human species was introduced, where the pronouncement of a loving God was for the couple, Adam and Eve, to become His co-creator, gifted with a mind that can process a thought, because a thought processed by a mind would result into a feelings and emotion, which emotion becomes our internal driver of our soul and including our direction in life. That's why this emotion also functions as a feedback mechanism, as it serves as GPS in simple terms. And that's why we have to view emotion as not as positive and negative, but as something like empowering and disempowering, such that if a thought that our mind entertains disempowers us, which stops us from pursuing a dream because we are being demotivated or disempowered, then that very versatile mind that was gifted with God along with its focus can be led to a detour by simply changing thought, so that the thought that was disempowering, that led to a disempowering feel and emotion, the moment we change entertaining a mind with a thought, that can easily be replaced with something empowering, because that's the function of emotion as a feedback mechanism, functioning as a GPS. If ever we become so disempowered or disenfranchised by how we entertain very depressive thought, okay, the problems we create are just product of our imagination and how our mind entertains a thought, and just in case we become overpowered by the effect of this hormone or chemical, because it is a neurotransmitter that runs in the entire system of the human being, which led to a feel that is very demotivating or disempowering, then we can always change thought to replenish our energy. That's why our emotion, the objective of God gifting us emotion is not only to function as our GPS, but it also at the same time function as a fuel tank or a fuel gauge to help us find that when we run on an empty, and as far as energy reserve is concerned, we can always renew it by thinking of a much more empowering thought that leads to a very encouraging, empowering feeling. And that is the import or the importance of the text that you can find in Philippians chapter 4 verse 8, written by Apostle Paul, when he says, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are of good report, if there is any virtue, dwell on these things. So the word encourage our mind to dwell on things that are healthy, wholesome, okay, productive, because the mind being the battleground of the war, which is polemic in nature, polemic means it's an exchange of word, because it's the war is about the accusation of the enemy on the character of God, which is love. Okay, so we have to refill, fine-tune our thoughts with good thoughts for our mind to process, so that it gives us a good feel, a very encouraging feel to lead us to functionality in our lives, so that we become more productive and more focused to a direction of our dream. Okay. It's just about the overview, because if I may give you a report of what really happened today on our trip, my friend started by asking us, we did recording right away. We learned lessons in our past trip because we were excited more on doing live, believing that it will not give us time pressure. But for today's experience, what we did was we did recording based on what topic my friend would like us to extrapolate on. And so we started about, there were many things we talked about to begin with. If I remember it right, towards lunch, I may not be able to remember it in proper chronology, but towards lunch, before we took our lunch on an Arabian restaurant in Il Corso, he was asking me about the basis or the base of relationship, where it should be anchored on. I made him understood the very anchor, the greatest anchor of love, which should be, it's anchored in a decision, because love is an emotion and never a feeling. And if you base it on a feeling, all right, you can never be sure what happens to that love the morning after, when the feeling would be gone. And so what really happens as a process, every time we had this, we found someone that we get attracted to, that many would call us love at first sight. What runs actually in the process that many are not aware, because they were carried away by a feeling. But along that feeling, the moment they spot on that someone, there was that element, in a very quick sense, the element that led them to decide that they like that someone. And so that liking over whatever quality they saw over that someone, and the pursuing of that someone to find out if this quality is something one would ever desire, is what was the decision that that liking was anchored for, that later on led to decide to love that person, to have him or possess her or him. And that's the reason that when you're already in a relationship and you come to discover you get pissed off by a certain attitude by your loved one because you had that early decision and desire to have him for a quality you wanted to be with, you can always fix issues with her in terms of what attitude one wears as you move ahead in your relationship. That is because such a relationship is based on a decision. Now, love as an emotion also had it's a very empowering emotion. Okay, and it becomes reinforced. This empowering emotion is reinforced when it is being referenced by a decision, because every moment that you have the tendency to be tempted to have your love win, WEAN, okay, then it's reinforced by the idea of a decision that you wanted to move ahead to be with the someone you have decided to begin with, even if sometimes feelings have the tendency to be gone. That's the beauty when this love is anchored on a decision. All right. I'm getting to see so many people watching our live. I did it this way is because unlike my other live on Facebook page and on what do you call this on my profile, is because I'm uploading this on my YouTube. And that's why I did a simultaneous broadcast with a format for YouTube that is in a panoramic way, but on my page as well as on my profile, I did it the vertical way, the Facebook standard. And because it's going to be uploaded in my YouTube, so I did it like I'm doing a speech. I'm delivering not necessarily a sermon, but just a lecture or a story of what happened today in my journey with my friend. Okay? And so we talked about love being referenced at that at one time, back to the viewing deck and to where we had our first take of emotions before over that nature spark somewhere in Toledo City where my friend brought me again there. We also talk about, I could not forget it unless I would review back what we have recorded because they will all be due for uploading. But let me just recall. We were talking also at the viewing deck about how we can to unsettle the many things that we chase for in life, to include some wishes, some dreams that no matter how we chase for the stars and no matter how we achieve them, they not only end up elusive, but they end up to be very dysfunctional and we get disappointed the moment we are there. In other words, it's been an experience that instead of the expectation that that dream giving us the fulfillment, especially if you are wired with a wiring like us, where we are easily, we easily get discouraged, or we're the type of people or persons who, when after achieving something, that something has lost its meaning, okay, in search for something more. And we keep searching for something more, beginning with, we had been talking this over and over in the past. If, for instance, we talk about hope, we talk about faith, to even include love. When we try to realign again in our conversation this morning that all these things, when mankind was made fresh from the hand of God, created perfect before sin, everything was there to include love, because that love that we have been chasing for and looking at the end of the tunnel, hoping it would come soon, that very love actually is within the gift that God gave us, because He gave us a heart, and from the time we were born carrying an emotion, we become more emotional than logical, plus a mind processing a thought, where after all these downloads, we can reformat them so that we live to have a very aligned or a coherent life with a thought and of a heart that is aligned with our mind to reach a state of coherence or mental clarity, so that we would navigate through life with a reformatted version of our download when filters are there for us to recheck and or correct downloads that were beyond our choice because there was no filter. When we come to discover certain reality or a certain truth, when we have developed independence as part in the growing process of becoming mature, and if we would look at the concept of love as loving is knowing, and when we grow enough to discover our after the many experiences, the learning experiences that we have to apply whatever we have learned in our experience, which you call growth. And so towards imbibing so much of this growth as we get mature, we reach a point in the golden age when everything gets settled that we want to give back to the world from what we have realized, where we are now. And this is the golden moment by which we started to share what we have discovered in our journey, especially that we were made to realize by the many philosophers, scientists, authors, motivational speakers around, that the nature of the soul where you and I are can never be contained because you can never box a soul. And so we are always there to explore the every knowledge that we imbibe on, because to grow or to transform does not only need knowledge. We may be provided with knowledge from instructions or experiences of others or from our reading, but that knowledge cannot be transformed into a transformation until we experience them. And that becomes the wisdom. And when we get to validate as we experience a thought, a principle, an emotion, a feeling, and if we get to see through emotion being a good feedback mechanism that is really supporting us with our goals and our dreams and giving us the satisfaction, the meaning, and the moment we arrive there, we would celebrate the joy of that discovery in our exploration, as you cannot box a soul. And that's the moment when we would start to share what experience we have to the world as a legacy to the next race, to the next generation, in trying and hoping to improve the race. Okay? So that is what it is all about. There's something that I was remembering earlier on, but I just could not inject because I was talking rather too fast. Okay? So what we were saying is, in the maturing process, okay, where as a product of exploring to validate whatever we learned, those principles that we have learned in our course, in our experiences, blah, blah, blah. And because the nature of the soul that you and I all are, it's very explorative and you cannot contain it, as the nature of a soul cannot be boxed. And because of this explorative nature that we all have, that is one reason why God did not only give us the five senses to experience the resources and the majesty that earth has provided, because the reason we have all these senses is because to a soul, what would chocolate taste like without those senses? And all the other ecstatic experience you have, minus the senses, you can never, celebrate it or found meaning to it. How? Because we need to share the every joy we discover from the sensors God gave us. However, as we also uncovered last time in our previous discussion, the five sensors that God human race are limited in terms of how it operates or the information that it gave us, because the senses that we possess are even inferior to the senses of the other species of animals. For instance, the cats and the dogs have higher sense of sight and smell. Okay? And the range of temperature that our sense of touch can process is very short range. Okay? And that's why there are very very high temperatures that we are not capable of touching. We can only predict. But as to the very exact feel of that temperature, either cold or hot, because our sensors are very limited. So if you look at the five senses, the sight, it's limited. The hearing is limited. The smell is limited. The touch and the feel. How could you ever be sure in your destination, in your journey, that you are being guided properly when your sensors are limited in its operation in giving us the information that we need? And that's exactly where emotion comes in, because emotion that processes beyond what your senses could, and that being our driver to our internal and external reality, we get driven by how we feel, by the emotions that we process. Although emotions are just actually chemical reactions, as they came from neurotransmitter in the neurocortex that runs towards the limbic brain, the midbrain, and becomes neuropeptide. And from the neuropeptide, as it goes through the spinal column to be distributed to what messages or thought your mind process, it becomes a hormone that is delivered to entire body. And depending on what hormone, what emotion, like if it's a hormone or an emotion of fear, of stress, of anxiety, it disempowers us. Okay? But if it's an emotion of love, of joy, of peace, of satisfaction, then that encourages us or empowers us. Okay? So that is the gift of emotion, where aside from that, we were given another gift more expensive than the skill of acquiring wealth and or money, which is your focus. Because what will your resources, your material resources, be of use to you if your mind doesn't have a focus? Okay? And so that is very important. Or for what use will your other resources have if your mind jumps from one plan to another because it fails to focus on something? You may be successful for now, but if there is no focus through and through in your journey, you will get to realize at the end or before the end of it that everything will be gone. Okay, so that's the importance of this gift. And so the reason I'm telling this, and the reason I had been always reiterating this, the reason I'm making a page for my Facebook to reach as many friends out there, and the reason I had my accounts monetized to help me create more and more content, and the reason I had this channel and my YouTube is, these are simple things that all of us can relate. These are universal things that you and I have, as this is the gift we carry at birth. And we always used to decide based on our emotions day in and day out. But until we have a proper information on the importance of why we were gifted with emotion, wonder why there are so much crime of passion, which happens to be the misuse of our emotion. And wonder why there are a lot or high rates of suicide and depression, because depression is a form of unmanaged emotion. And so when you talk about emotion, moving ahead, in most of the modules and our trainings and workshops and our seminars that we handle, I have invitations to as far as Mindanao side, Tacorong and somewhere. And I told my friend I'll do away with the rates that we used to, our asking rate before. What I'm only asking for all of you who are viewing this is, you can invite me for just the basics, okay? To handle in anything you would like for your training or workshops, or to deliver message that you would like to empower to your company, corporation, to the LGU. And the honorarium, or we don't have asking fee, but what we shall be asked is for you to support our channel, okay? To subscribe and to continue to share the content that we had been creating, because what we generate as an income to this talent that we have dedicated to pay back to mankind is, okay, that will be more than enough to benefit the rest to discover the importance of these things that we always wear day in, day out, which is emotion, that we are totally unaware its purpose. Okay. And aside from emotion, if I may end up, because I can never be sure if I'm running my time, I'm seeing to it that I would only be up to 1 hour for my YouTube upload. We didn't only talk again, review emotion, love as the anchor, or rather, decision as the anchor for loving, in a given relationship, because when we talk about emotion, we need to manage it, and that is the area of emotional intelligence or our emotional quotient, which is very necessary that we should know how to handle our own emotion, and before the handling, know its trigger, know how it's feel, so that as you manage your own emotion, that's the moment you can start to manage others. In other words, if you are in a loving relationship, love can always be measured in a relationship. If you know how to manage yourself, you can manage others. So you come out with empathy and compassion, and that leads to an unconditional loving. Now, side by side, that is we being energetic beings, creatures of energy, processing vibration and frequency and broadcasting it from our thoughts, okay, which influences others. It's been a while that I'd been reading about energy consciousness or energy, uh, psycho, I forgot the term, but it's about energy consciousness or energy psychology, something like that. And it was only a couple of days back that I come to discover that thought being energy, and the energy that we wear, and every time we share our energy, it can always affect others. So if thoughts can heal and kill, and if thoughts are energy, the way you handle your energy also, it can either heal or kill. And if you are aware of how to use your energy, and if you are more immersed into healing energy that you can apply for yourself, the tendency is you will always be able to influence others with this healing energy that you possess, because your energy is measured one arm length away from you. So, meaning, without you doing anything, whatever energy you have, that is measured by one arm length. So the people that is very close to you can feel your energy on a normal basis. Now, we had that study on the electromagnetic of the wave of the heart. If it is so aligned, if the heart is so aligned with the mind, where it needs to be aligned in order to reach the state of coherence. Now, when your electromagnetic field of the heart is measured, then it can influence to be something like 8 feet away from you in all spheres, meaning front side, back side, left side, right side, upward and downward. 8 feet away, meaning without you telling anything, you just have to be in one place, just keep silent, and you actually emit this wavelength, this frequency, or this energy. Now, to love is to influence others. And if our heart is filled with good energy, good thoughts coming from the scriptural advice that we once quoted earlier in Philippians 4:8, and if thoughts are considered frequency or an energy that lead to the transmission of a good hormone coming from neurotransmitter to a neuropeptide to a certain neurochemical that runs in our bloodstream to supply, to include oxygen delivered to our organs and the nutrients, and the thought becomes our character. It starts as a mood, okay? And through a refractory period, if you continue to entertain that emotion, it does not only end as a mood, it can become a temperament. After a temperament, it can become an attitude and later a character. And if we are so formed by good thoughts or good energy, that is the kind of brain wave or heart wave or electromagnetic wave or influence that we throw around us, such that anywhere we go, we can always be an influencer. We influence others. Now, life is not about teaching others. We don't need a teacher, we need a follower. The follower is someone that we look up to in how he models, by how he carries himself, okay? We call that doing the talk, okay? And that's why in disciplining, in parenting, disciplining is not more on giving instruction, but it's more on worrying about whether you handled properly your life as a parent, that your children will see, because they will try to imitate that, okay? So the model or the leader becomes the facilitator in a journey to life. And the spectator, who are we, actually are the ones applying what we learn from the model that we look up to. And in the commandments of God, in the first commandment of God, that is when He said, "Thou shalt not have any other gods before me," meaning the best role model that we have to look forward to, who is the author and the finisher of our faith, is no less than our Creator, Jesus Christ, and that we have to worship Him alone, who made us, who made the heavens and the earth, whose character is love. Because if we fully get to know His person by how He demonstrated all this loving principle of the character of the triune God, when He personified, when He became a part of the human race, when in how His teachings He was able to demonstrate how to live the commandments of God in its full precepts and principle, not as a command, but as a principle. Because love, after all, is a principle. And when it is a principle, it is due for our decision. That's why, since love is an emotion, which emotion is not a feeling, okay? But it is the thought that becomes a feeling that lead to the creation of an emotion. Emotion is only, that is actually how hormones are simplified. And the moment it runs in our system to influence us, it's when you either feel good or feel bad. If you feel good, no problem, because it supports your dream and your life. If you feel bad by that emotion, that being a feedback mechanism and a GPS, still you have no case to worry, because you can always change thought and make a detour or replace those thoughts, so that from something disempowering, it can automatically change to something empowering. And all of this requires thought, which is a form of energy. And if you realize the importance of us being called energetic beings, processing energy in the quantum field, which field is the mind of God, then we would be able to simplify and understand how we should conduct life in preparation for the life ahead that we are looking forward for. I doubt if I am already time, if have already enough time, or if I have already consumed my time for my upload on my YouTube. But by this time, maybe I can switch off my YouTube channel, as I have nothing much to say about, so I can entertain my watchers on both my page as well as here on my profile. I see my brother Joel Hurulan. Okay. Oh, I'm quite far from my screen actually, but I can look near it to know what these guys are telling me. Mawala ang audio mo, Brad. Magduko ka. Ah, alright. Kung magduko ko, nawawala ang aking audio. I think it's about the signal, Brad. I have a very bad signal here. Okay, it's been days, and I failed to distribute the use of my server, so that maybe in my other gadget it was enjoying a good Wi-Fi, but I failed to distribute it because I was running out of time, and there were so many calls and messages that I did not even answer. So thank you for staying with me on my broadcast, Brother Joel. I failed to see you in our convention. Okay, we lingered long before that in Boracay, and so it was budget problem why we were not able to, I was not able to chance upon going into the convention. And so that was the truth of it, no? I would love to, but then again, we spent the resources earlier and it took us a longer time in Boracay, and you know how expensive that place was. So, okay, so I think, let me see, I'm almost an hour. Okay. And I just have a substantial content loaded on my YouTube. So I might as well switch off earlier my YouTube broadcast, as I would continue on with my Facebook. Let me see how many. Well, I have guests on my page as well. I have Proud La Bandera here, Marisa. I'm sorry, Marisa, but I'm quite far from my screen because I wanted to concentrate on my speech. So I can get near so as to respond to the messages, but I'd still be lingering actually on my page and on my profile. I will just have to switch off now my broadcast for my YouTube. Sinabay ko kasi itong tatlo para isang ano na lang. Kasi gusto ko maging seryoso na this new month of May. Dahil parang wala atang masyadong magandang income last month as we're just newly monetized. And so tingnan natin kung may papasok bang figure for the month of May. Okay? So, thank you very much, friends, for being with me. I also have a very consistent listener on my YouTube channel, actually, who lingered on the entire broadcast. Okay, I did not know that even the live in the YouTube is also monetized, and there were ads running there. As I saw one in the shop earlier, when they asked about my YouTube channel because they wanted to subscribe, one of the crew opened my live, and when I said, "Oh, that was very long because you need to view it," and and there's no ads there, and the guy said, "There's ads, sir. Dalawa nakita ko." So when I checked on that, because when I open on my channel, I wouldn't see how many ads are running. It's until my wife and other people would open it that I will get to see and realize the ads running. Now, I was able to monetize my YouTube ahead of my Facebook, and that's why people are enjoying to see ads on my uploads. Now, word of caution, in case you want to visit and see my uploads and you see ads running, please allow it to finish. Do not skip, because that's the only way we are enjoying the revenue, or we are paid for the revenue of the ads that are attached to our videos. So thank you very much, guys. I would now love to advise a sign off for my YouTube broadcast. Okay? I'm sure this time I don't know which of my mic is to off, because, all right, let me check so that hindi na off yung iba. Okay.